Okay, here we are. Welcome, everybody. Sorry, I'm starting just a little bit late today. Not a crisis. All right, let's gotta make sure I've got that straight. Not really. This time it's this thing that's at fault. Yeah, that's a little better. It doesn't matter, just so you can see the chess pieces. Yeah. There we go. Okay. And then we want it over that way. That'll work. All right. Let's get going here. So these are last week we went over the different king and pawn endgame strategy for the opposition. It was very, very brief. It didn't last a long time. Hey, Ice Cream, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. So we did go over the opposition. And so this time I want to show something, just baby steps, just get a little bit more clarity on what to do. I think you can see that good enough. Yep, it shows. Okay, so your king is far away from your pawns in this particular situation. I do believe this is this is an actual game. The black king is able to escort his pawns down, and he's got a pawn here holding back the white pawns. Hey, Belaglavi, sup? Good to see you, my friend. So the white king has allowed himself to be separate from his little buddies, and the black king is marching his buddy. So the real question is, if you're white in this position, how do you protect those pawns? Because you can see what black's going to do, right? If it's black's move. Yeah. So this is pretty serious depending on which move you've got. Depends on who has the move. However, white does achieve a breakthrough. Can you see it? What would you do as white here? I gave you the hint. There is a breakthrough that white has that is really kind of cool and important to recognize when you're playing with kings and pawns. And let's show you, since no one's responding, and I can't blame you, H6 wins the game. Even though, and it's interesting because the king, normally you want to keep your king with your pawns to escort them in, right? But when you push H6, you win the game. And now the king has to come to E6, and now you have the breakthrough, G6. The cool thing about this is when you have two pawns together, they can tag team, right? I mean, this is WW Chess tag team match, right? And now there's nothing he can do to stop him. You go here, and then, of course, you start getting your king up there to... No! I just wanted to see if you were awake. No, don't touch that king. Not yet. You push it to H7 and get your queen. So that's kind of a cool little illustration to see, even if you've left your king away from your pawns, you can still do really good. Let's set up another one that is really quite cool. This one has two pawns also. The black king is stopping the pawn. Yes. Oh, now this is kind of cool too because the pawns have switched places. Get rid of these little guys. I should have just used them to set it up. Okay, so let me make sure I got this right. C4, A4. Yep, I got it right. So in this instance, it is white to move. And the real question is, You don't want to push the C pawn. I can see that right now. That would not be nice. And you don't want to push the A pawn because you can't. What a smart aleck, right? I apologize. I feel bad about this, but I'll get over it. Yeah, it's one of those. This is Georgiev playing this. Grigoriev, I mean, playing this. King comes to B3. Up towards your pieces. Center so that you can guard both of those pawns. That makes perfect sense. This is not good. No, because his pawn is going to go in, right? So what you do by moving to B3 is you contact all three pawns. You stay in touch with everything. And this little guy here, he's not going to pass. So you're good. So king to B3 is really, really wonderful. Now, his opponent went to A2. And the amazing thing here is an interesting move that Grigoriev did. I got to start pronouncing his name right or he's going to slap me. I honestly don't know if he's even still alive. Don't take the pawn. Go to B2. And here's why he did this. Because now he comes to B4. And now he goes to king to A1. Notice he's not taking pawns yet. Realize that he's trying to make it so that his king can be in opposition first to his opponents. That's more important at this stage than taking the pawns. That is really interesting. That is really, really interesting. So now the king takes A4. And now you push C5. Now this is getting wild. This is not how I would have played this, and that's probably why I wouldn't have won. Now the pawn sacrifice leads to a draw because he is a pawn down. So he does sacrifice the pawn. He was able to see that he can make it a draw from that far away. This is what's so amazing about these guys. D takes C, and now king takes A2. And now he's calculated the opposition. King B4, take the opposition. And now from now on, he'll take the opposition. King to C4, king to C2. No matter what he does, white has the opposition, and therefore black can't win this. That's a very interesting idea. Notice that he was focusing on the opposition instead of taking the pawns for most of that. Now, that is very, very important. So let's set up another one. I want to do one that's, hold on here. I thought I had something in the next chapter too. Hold on, I'm looking. Oh, no, the next chapter's good too, though. It's got double check. It's got double check stuff. Let's go back to let's go over to this one. This one is a great illustration. It looks like the white king is so far away from his opponent. Hey, Lucky Charms. And S. Parker, how are you? Good to see y'all. So in this one is kind of interesting too, because it's white to move. Yeah, it's white to move. Your king is a little distant from the pawn, although technically speaking, the white pawn can close off the A column for the black king to march up into, right? So in a way, the black king is going to have a long circuitous route to get over there to the pawn. The ideal, I mean, if you can't, you can't, but the ideal is to get your king in front of your pawn to help march the pawn in, right? In this instance, it appears white's king is way out of play, yet the situation is such that so is the black king with that long circuitous route. So this is really interesting to see. And so let's take a look at how he did this. Hold on, let me make sure I'm getting this correct. Yeah, that's the right example. So what he does is he presses the pawn. Now, this will virtually force the black king all the way around because it shuts him out of the A column. So who's further away? Right? And this is Grigoriev again. It is important that the white pawn crosses the center line before, and this is why you push that pawn. There's your center line here. We want the pawn past that center line rather than get your king to the pawn. For one reason, he's not in any danger immediately. Yeah? So pressing the pawn is correct. Because if he had moved the king, then this gives black a chance to approach the center pawn or the center line. And that's not a good place to be in if you're white. So it is better to push your pawn. Now king will come to b7. Of course, he's going to march immediately. And now you can go king e4 and then king c7. Notice the c6 is off for him. And of course, now e5 because that takes the opposition. This is the critical point. Hey, Jizanim, good to see you, man. Thank you for showing up. This is really an important point in endgame play. You want to keep your king close to your pawns as much as possible. This is true. This is an absolutely silly error. It doesn't take the opposition. This is why he went here, because he's got the opposition, the odd number of squares between the kings. So he still didn't get closer to his pawn, but he doesn't have to because he kills two birds with one stone with that move. He gets opposition and the king still can't move forward. That's the point of doing opposition. Okay, so this will be interesting because now he goes to king d7 and king comes to d5. Takes the opposition. You see that? They're on the same color. This guy owns those three squares. The black king cannot move forward. It is critical to take the opposition. Notice also that the black king is limited to staying closer to his pawn. Yes? Of course, and so is white. So you go back and forth. King c7, but hold on now. Because now, interestingly enough, he goes to king e6, and what he's doing is he's flanking. Now watch this. This is so interesting. He can't come here. He can't come here, and he can't come here. So flank him, because that still prevents the king, black king, from moving forward. Flanking them. This is really interesting what happens. King b7, what do you think? Where would you go? White. Correct. King d6. You notice how the white king is now pushing the black king around. Because he pushed that pawn first at the first of the move in this issue, in this situation. So now he gets to go to king b8. And now you can see black's trouble. Because White flanked him, utilizing his own pawn that he pressed forward to keep the black king at bay. Now white can get a pawn. Or can he? King c6. No, he's got king a7. So he's still in contact with his pawn. So it's not over till a fat lady sings, however. Now what are you going to do? Right? Isn't that interesting how just that little bit of flanking has now made it so that black's king loses contact with his own pawn. And now, and now he takes the pawn. Now, interestingly enough, king comes to b8. And what you do in this instance is don't give up hope. Don't lose your way. Clear the way for your opponent. Your pawn. Sorry, I meant your pawn. So that's an interesting idea. Let me see if I can find another one. I've got this page turned down. We did that one. Okay, now Belaglavi said next two connected pawns versus rook. I've got stuff with rook and pawn endgames, and I will look stuff up like that for you, Belaglavi, and I'll do it next week. Hey, Amy and Aylan Daly. Let's do this one that is on the, Rook file. This will be a good one to do. So you've got pawns on the rook. There we go. You got pawns on the rook file, and the kings are approaching. And it is white to move. So you observe that whoever has the move can take the opposition against the opponent's king. If it's black to move, he can take the opposition. Go into g4, say, just as a sample. You can also take the opposition, go into e4, but you don't want to do that because you're moving away from your pawns. The thing you want to keep in mind all the time is I need to move such that, and they don't have any free moves with their pawns either. Their pawns are locked. So opposition is critical here. Whoever has the move gets the opposition. Looks like Lucky Charms. I just started learning openings. This is interesting as well. Oh, hey, I can do some openings too. That'll help us out. I know that there's some really good opening books. Boy, there's hundreds of them. All right, good. Good for you. Good on you. So here's how white gains the opposition. Of course, f6. White's pawn is further advanced. So if he can get that black pawn, he can walk that pawn in because he's controlling, if and when he gets there, he will control the g7 and g8 squares, which is going to let his pawn go in once he gets rid of the black pawn. He does this by taking the opposition first and foremost. It's true that gets him closer to the black pawn. And yet it's not true, because now it allows this guy to move forward. Right? A silly example, but this is the type of stuff that happens all the time. You want to keep in mind that opposition idea. So rather than allow black to move his king forward to contact your pawn, you keep the opposition on black. You're not worrying about the black pawn so much as you are preventing your opponent from moving forward to target your pawn. Therefore, you do take the opposition, which means You control those squares. It's black's move. So black cannot go attack the pawn. That's why that's the correct move. Yeah, I'm not trying to talk down to you. I so promise. It's just really important because so many people, they get to this they get to this status and they go, oh, I got to hurry up and get rid of that pawn. You don't have to hurry up and get rid of that pawn. You have to get closer to the pawns while preventing your opponent's king from moving forward toward the pawns as well. And that means you control the 3 squares between the kings. Now it's black's move, and he can't advance. Really good to know. So, seriously, what else can he do? Right? And yet pay attention. Now you can go G7, and now he can come F5, and now you can take H7, and now he can come to F6. Are you watching this? And there's the key. If you can control, when your pawn is on the rook file, if you can control the queening square and the square next to it, up from it, G6, G8, and G7, then you can win the game because you've prevented him from making any advancement. Yes, he can contact the pawn at this point, but that doesn't help him because now you have the move, you have a move that you can bring the pawn into contact with your king and you're going to win this game. So that's really kind of cool to know how to observe that. Let's do another one because the repetition is really helpful for us to get the point. I mean, that's the theory. It's all theory until someone wrecks it with a beautiful fact, right? All right, we've got pawns everywhere on the ground and in the air. Well, not in the air, but on the board. So now white has made good progress with his 2 pawns, and they are connected. Black is in a good defensive position. He does have a pawn to help him out in this conundrum. It is situations like this that opposition will either win the game or lose it, depending on whether you take it or you don't. So what to do in this instance? Let me get to the notes. See, this is what I like about Yusupov, is he really gives you interesting scenarios. And I know we all like to think, yeah, well, basically I could probably skip some of this stuff because I really don't get to the very end game in a lot of my games, and so I don't need to learn this. Wrong! We all need to learn this. And it gets fun to be able to play it better and better as we practice. So let's see what happens. It is, whose move is this? Hold on, let me look real quick. It is white to move. So we've got a couple of choices. Neither pawn is threatened. The C pawn supports the B pawn. We know that the black king can't move forward because of that B pawn. So in a way, isn't it kind of cool to see that the B pawn is controlling the A7 and C7 squares? So that gives us a hint that rather than move a pawn, because we've actually severely limited what the black king could do. Now, we don't want to do stalemate, but we know we're not, because he's got the A8 square to go to, right? So he does have a square he can move to, And we know that whoever takes the opposition is in the best possible way. Especially for us, another thing that we want to keep in mind is one of my pawns, I'm hoping, if you're white, I'm really hoping to be able to break in to queen. So the most important squares for us is going to be the B8 and the C8. If we can find a way to get our king to control those squares, then we can put a pawn in there. Yeah? To move the pawns right now is not the correct point. Why? Simple question, but what's the answer? That's what we wanted to know. What's odd about this position? Oh, hey, Chris Parisia. Good to see you. Hey, Emerald Miner. Awesome. Oh, wow. Good for you. Cool. Pushing your own agenda. Good to see you. Okay, so back to reality now. We notice, and this is something you'll want to keep your mind on, you don't have to wait until you get the kings and pawns either. You sincerely don't. If I'm gonna draw this out on purpose because you do certain strategies for the beginning, right? The openings. You have certain strategies for the middle games. And then you have really important strategies for the end games as well. But they're a little different than what you're going to do if you're in the opening or the middle. So end games have its own logic. Even if you have other pieces, on the board, and of course, you're going to focus on those other pieces. If it's white to move, you're going to get your bishop out of there, right? This makes sense, but you don't have to wait until you're down to kings and pawns to begin to think about opposition. That's important. I mean, come on, after all, that's what the lesson is, right? Opposition. So, to make a long story short, ta-da! There it is, king to d8. And he virtually is forced to the one square. Now, notice we didn't stalemate him, but we're flanking him. We're forcing him. And now we get a breakthrough. The advantage is we have pawns connected. So now we get the breakthrough by c6. You don't want to go here or it's stalemate, right? Just be aware of that. Leave him a square to go to. Go ahead and bump your pawn. The B will take the c6. He has no choice. And you go, yeah, but now he's got a pass pawn. I've got to go chase that little guy. I've got to go here to d7 and hurry up and get him, right? No. You go to c7. Very important, because here you're controlling the queening square. It's true here you can still attack, but he's just going to press the pawn and you're going to lose if you don't pay attention to this guy. So it is always better, as you can, to keep the king and the pawn connected, and there you go. Now let him run his pawn. Now his king can't move, so that you're virtually forcing him to run his pawn, and now you've got check. Right? You're in. You're in because you control the queening square with your king. So he'll have no choice but to go there, and then you got your queen. So a cool little illustration on that one. Okay. Oh, thank you, Justin Moser. Yeah. The question is BYP for prez of what? President? I'm a nobody, man. I can't be a president of something. Maybe I could. Hey, if nothing else, if I became president of something, I would make us all laugh a lot, right? You gotta have a little bit of fun. I'm just saying. Vote me for president and I'll make you laugh more. That'd be a good campaign run idea, wouldn't it? Yeah, whatever. So, I think I just did that one. I want to, and I've done that one. Okay. Let's do this one. Now, this is a bit more difficult. Sincerely, it is. He's going to be there, and the king is going to be here. Hold on. Let me make sure that I have E4. Sometimes it pays to double check. I'm just saying. B1, and then I want him on C5. Okay, and he's in contact. Okay, so in this instance, it's white to move. So, again, it's really important to think opposition. I say that every time on this because it really is. And the question is, do you have opposition as white? Now, I'm saying think about it. I'm not saying you have to always and immediately take the opposition. Okay? That's not necessarily the best strategy. So we want to be careful that way too. We just want to be aware of the opposition. In this instance, the way to take the opposition is to move over there to C1. But on the other hand, so what? Right? It doesn't do you a whole lot of good immediately. You're right. I agree, Belaglavi. C1, King C1 is the opposition. I just want you to be aware of that. Remember, 1, 2, 3, there's an odd number out and you're on the same color. For instance, if he goes here, then you go there to opposition and you control those 3 squares. That's what it means to say you have the opposition, right? So in this instance, he moves the pawn. And you go, yeah, but he's got to queen the pawn. No, you don't. If you understand opposition, you can force a draw. And if you're playing a very, very, very strong club player, and they do exist, who doesn't have a clue about opposition, you can get half a point from him. You can steal half a point with this opposition idea, right? Yeah, username. And the cool thing is, Yusupov did give him a 3-star on difficulty. 5-star is almost impossible. This is a 3-star difficulty. So Juicer is correct. This is a difficult one, but the E5 is the most important part of this game because you're going to force a draw. And see, in this part of the mystique of the Grandmasters and the Masters, you say, okay, look, there ain't no way you can see a draw out of that. Yes, there really is. And it doesn't involve a boatload of calculating either. Seriously. Thank you for pointing that out, Juicer. Yes, yeah, this is a more difficult one. But to show you that you don't always have to save your pawn, especially if this is a stronger player, try to get the opposition and you can get a half a point, and that elevates you. So, yeah, get rid of the pawn. Now, the question is he going to take the pawn? Does black have to take the pawn? Let's take a look. Yeah, he takes it. And now you take the opposition. So what you do is you sacrifice your pawn, and he retakes when he's not in opposition with you. Opposition meaning the kings only. So you forced it. See, you're forcing him. Look. He can't ignore that, right? Because if he does, you're going to go that way. So he's got to take it. So there's his move, and he is not in opposition, and now you go to opposition. And now you can force the draw. And you go, well, okay, let's look at this. First thing he wants to do is contact his pawn, right? If, and this is important too, understand this. It's true, Black wants to escort his pawn in. Yes, thank you, username. In fact, I'm going to put that on. Thank you. He says it better than I do. Jews are for president. That's who should be president. It is important to force the black pawn one square further with this sacrifice, so black does not have a tempo with the pawn later on to get the opposition, and Yusupov does mention that. So thank you. Correct. That's true. Sometimes you can't win, but you can still draw. So thank you, Juicer. That's a very important point. Appreciate you bringing that up. Absolutely, because if he comes to 4 and you're thinking, all right, now if I'm black, this is the square you got to cover with your king, right? But this doesn't work because now you get the opposition, your opponent, if you're black. You see that? Every time from here on out that black makes a move, white is simply going to take the opposition. That's how you know what to do with the king, with your king, regardless of whether he has a pawn or not. That doesn't matter. Yeah? So if he goes here, then you go here. To D1, you don't need, you're in opposition here. You know he's going to go contact the pawn. Okay, yeah, that's great. Remain in opposition. You don't need to bring your king. Opposition works all the way across the board. Distance between kings is irrelevant with opposition. So you maintain the opposition, which means you are controlling those 3 squares in front of your king. That's one way to look at it. Not at the moment, but you do control them. So that's the idea. I think that Yusupov wanted to show. Yes, because now if he goes king e4, the idea, see, he wants to contact his pawn. He goes to here. You came to here, opposition. So he comes to here, and you go to here, maintaining the opposition. Same color, odd number of squares between the kings. You have the opposition, controlling those squares. So when he comes here, same thing. You know automatically where to move your king, and it's not to there. No. And you say, well, I moved it straight across on the... No, because now you've got an even number of squares between your 2 kings, and you're not on the same color. No, from here, now you do move up 1, and notice the effect. What did I say? The opposition. Control those 3 squares in front of you. It's his move, and like our beloved friend username mentioned, he doesn't have an extra move with the pawn. So he has to move his king. Yeah, that's the power of opposition. The black player will never be able to get his pawn in because white is in opposition. And you think I'm kidding, right? No, I'm not kidding. You maintain opposition no matter what. So anyway, all right. I apologize. I'm going to call it just a little bit short today. I've got a busy day. I've got to run out of town. So let's call this a 45-minute chess lesson. I've given you quite a few good examples on opposition. Next week, same time, we'll be doing it at 9 o'clock every morning. So next week, let me, now I've been in the opposition. What I want to try to do is I want to try to get into this. Let's see. Okay, we did do, it might help. You know what? I'm going to go, now that we've talked about king and pawns and stuff, next week I will go back into his intermediate. We've already talked about some of the pawn weaknesses ideas, and I do believe I showed those examples. So, and I did use that one, and I used that one and that one. So maybe we can review. Oh, there's just so much I can use. Yeah. We will review the pawn weaknesses, and then I will use 3 or 4 examples in games that illustrate the pawn weaknesses that we have not seen before or yet. So I think that's what I'll do next week, because this is such a, I mean, you know, we're at the beginning of his lessons, and this is such a critical idea to know how to work your pawns, regardless of whether you're at the opening, the middle, or the end game. So pawns are really, really critical. Let me take a look here in his advanced. Yeah, that was queen sacrifices. That's kind of an advanced idea that we can return to. Oh, yeah, baby. Okay, cancel what I just said about the pawn weaknesses. Here we go. Okay, now, next week. There we go. Realizing a material advantage in a pawn ending. A king with several pawns. We've been doing king with 1 pawn to practice opposition. Now we'll move forward and do this. Yeah, I'm gonna do chapter 4, realizing a material advantage in a pawn ending. So again, and don't be discouraged. There are so many people, teachers, authors who say one of the first things you ought to do is study chess endgames. Chess endings is more important. Oh, thank you, S. Parker. You are very kind. I appreciate that. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Hi, Karin. Karin Asrani just showed up. I'm still growing up, ice cream says. Yeah, well, I'll never grow up, so don't worry about it. Remember, we're here to have fun. So next time, we will improve our ability to, hold on. This is really actually, we need to know the end before the beginning. I get it. It's crazy, you guys. Yeah, I'm serious. We need to know the end before the beginning. In so many respects, because we lose pretty quick if we don't know the end. If you don't know what to do. For instance, and I mean it was years and years and years, I played Oh, let's put them. This is totally, absolutely, completely a different level chess. Absolutely. And yet the strategies, the idea, the themes have to be the same, at least in your mind, even at this point. What's the first thing you're going to think of? I mean, besides winning. What do you want to think of right now? Tell me. Tell me. Hi, Abdi Noor. Good to see you, my friend. Go on, talk to me. I know you know the answer to this question. Now we've got several pawns in the king. And it's really an odd setup because you go, you mean they didn't move their pawns? That's right. Okay, this happens. So what's one of the most important things you can be thinking of right now in this game? Come on. Karin says push pawn majority. I cannot argue with that impeccable logic. However, yeah, from white. From white. You know what they're saying. 3 pawns to 2, push that pawn majority. When and if the kings start coming into play, think opposition. Yeah. So the weakness is black has less pawns, and you're always going to want to push the pawn majority. So it's stuff like that that we'll look at next week in Yusupov's, I say advanced. Well, it is. It's in his chess evolution. This is in the master, grandmaster level of his material. Yeah. This is very important. This is really critical. I'm very excited. So this is the type of stuff we'll study next week. Kind of an opposition on steroids, so to speak, because now we've got a whole bunch of these guys to take care of. Right? In a way. Yes, Lucky Chalms. Can you teach us how we come up with middle game tactics and strategy or tragedy? In my case, it's strategy. Yeah, Juzanim, make a pass pawn. Absolutely. Yes, I can. I will. And the thing is, as we go through the lessons of Yusupov, he does touch on various different themes in all those categories. So this week, now that I found the idea of the pawn majority and stuff, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll come up with some middle game tactics. Maybe I'll pull old Silman out. He's always good for middle game tactics and strategy. And I will do that. Oh, there's so much to do in that area. Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. Yeah, this is a completely winning position for white. There's no question about that. Correct. The question we have that is so important is, are we going to be able to turn this into our advantage or not? Right? So, but yeah, it's just such a little item. You see, I've got 3, he's got 2. Hot dog, game over, let's go. But you got to know how to convert it, right? So that's what we'll look at next week. Pass pawn. Which book do I recommend for the middle game tactics and strategy? There's a lot of good ones, amigo. Seriously. One of the better books that I have for tactics that is really kind of very helpful and good is Susan Polgar's Chess Tactics for Champions. That's an awfully good book. I'm going to say the wrong word. I don't mean it. She's simple to follow, but it's not simple. It's not simplistic, I'll put it that way. But that's a very good book on the tactics side. And honest to goodness, for just middle game strategy, seriously, Silman Reassess Your Chess. This is his 3rd edition. if you get a chance, you can also purchase his 4th edition, which is exquisitely written. A lot of fun. It looks like this. Jeremy Silman, How to Reassess Your Chess, 4th edition. I would highly and strongly recommend that as a chance to up your game in the middle. But I'm not kidding. I mean, sincerely, these 2 books, when you jump into them, and I didn't do this just yet, I have gone through them, but take a year, literally, per book, if you really want to get the best out of them. I did not do that, but I have been through both books. Probably a little too. This one took me 6 months. This one took me some time. So, I mean, I put some oomph into it. And this one I've been through 3 times. But that's been years ago. It's time for me to re-up my game and put this back into my head. But those 2, for the middle game, you can't go wrong. I'm not saying they're the best thing in the whole world. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying for middle game. And then if you just want to have a romp and a lot of fun, sincerely, Bobby Fischer, My 60 Memorable Games. This is kind of fun stuff. This is Fischer. You know, he went through and he found the 60 best games that he enjoyed. And then he, of course, put all the comments in it. I need to try to play more of these. During the week, if I wasn't so darn busy, if I can get back to making some Bobby Fischer chess game videos, I will start playing some of these, because some of his commentary and comment, he explains what he's thinking at a certain point in the game when his opponent makes a move and then stares at him or glares at him. He explains in the note, yeah, he thinks he really made a spectacular move. Watch this. I'm going to trounce him now. Stuff like that. And it's just so fun. It's just hilarious. It's Bobby Fischer at his best. That's kind of fun to help you improve your middle game. That's a good one. Well, let's see. There is, let me look real quick. Well, I mean, sincerely, it's kind of different. He's dead now too, but The Sorcerer's Apprentice, David Bronstein and Tom Furstenberg. There is a lot of serious quality chess in this. I took it to a printer and made the spiral ring binding. I had him spiral ring bound that so that I could turn it over on itself, and then I can just see each page. But yeah, this is also an exceptionally, really interesting, good book to look at. So, do I read the live chat? Oh, sure, Abdi. Absolutely. I've been told to, Lucky Chalm says, I've been told to focus on Italian, Scottish, and Queen Gambit theory starting out. Well, whatever you've been told, go with it and see what happens, right? In essence, in one way or another, and I'll just do this real quick, just you probably know this already. In one way or another, that is the area of the chessboard you want to control. Whether through putting a pawn or putting a piece on those central squares, or by controlling them from a distance. The center of the board is the most important. And all of the chess openings, the reason I'm saying that is because all of the chess openings are going to work within that idea of the stronger the center, the better your opening. So, and I mean, all chess openings have their different variations. Every one of them are good if you continually learn them, practice them, and study them. So whoever told you that, go ahead and try it. The Italian is one of my favorite openings also. It is a Lulu. It's fun. So it's a lot of fun. Yes, Susan Polgar, Chess of Champions. That's the tactics book, Abdi. And then number 2, Bobby Fischer, 60 Memorable Games. Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. I mean, that's just overall fun. That's recreational chess. That's spectacular stuff. And then number 3, Reassess Your Chess, 3rd and 4th edition of Jeremy Silman. Yes, correct. That's the I mean, for now, and understand, and I was kind of criticized years ago when I discovered Silman. Oh, and by the way, today's shirt, I went to West Yellowstone last weekend. Today's shirt is Don't Pet the Fluffy Cows, because these things will kill you. Do not approach the wildlife if you go to West Yellowstone. Don't be an idiot and make the news. The sad part about it is tourists and people who want to get a selfie with the fluffy cow, and they get up too close to the fluffy cow and the cow attacks them, then they have to destroy the animal. And it's not the animal's fault. It's the idiot on 2 legs. So sincerely, that's a pet peeve of mine. Stay the hell away from the wildlife. Your camera has a zoom on the phone. Use the zoom. So you don't need to be shaking the wolf's paw to have a good picture of the wolf, right? So yes, but just understand, I took a little bit of heat when I started sharing this, the fourth edition, because this is actually advanced middle game stuff. It is pretty dense material, but Silman makes it so pleasurable. He is hilarious. He's funny. He was very instructive. And this one also, it's fantastic. But at first, when you're using Silman, you might see a negative effect on your game for a few months because you're adjusting to his style of play rather than what you've been used to. Just be aware of that, okay? I didn't make that obvious enough years ago when I was showing some of Silman's stuff, and I got yelled at about it. So I'm yelling back now. Beware, you must be patient. Of course, if you're playing chess, we know you're patient already, right? Nobody impatient plays this fabulous game, so there is that. Oh, and then The Sorcerer's Apprentice. David Bronstein. Seriously, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. That's also, that's another exquisitely awesome book. Okay. All right. Hey, thank you for your questions. Oh, sorry. This will be recorded, Abdi, so you can go back to the recording. This is called The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's a presentation of David Bronstein's games. Tom Furstenberg was good friends with him, and it shows Bronstein on the. When you look it up on Google, it'll show up just like this. Yes, and if you guys would, if you like this kind of stuff, please hit the subscribe button and notification. Hit the like button. That helps me out with the algorithm. Hit the like. Thank you for all your support. Financially, psychologically, physically, by being here has been a boatload of fun. Oh, absolutely. My good pleasure. Thank you, Bella Glavi. Sup? Yeah, don't forget to comment, donate a few bucks, and click the notification bell. Very good, very good. Oh, yeah, good, Parker. S. Parker. That's nice. Oh, my good pleasure. Yeah. So, next week's going to be fun. I am sincerely looking forward to next week, where we're going to talk about... Sorry, my camera's backwards with this. So, where we're going to use several pawns in different configurations. I mean, look, we know this. There's 1,000 different, I mean, look at that. You got 2 connected black pawns, way across from the kings on the other. You got pawns on both wings. Yeah, stuff like that. So this will be really good to know what to do. I am very excited to do this. All right, you guys. Oh, thank you, Avi Zakin. That is so kind of you. I appreciate that. What is my rating? I am a nothing burger. I went to 1 tournament's all. I think my online rating, and this is very questionable. On Lee Chess, I did at one time. I think I got up to about 1,700, but it's way below 1,700 now. I haven't played online chess for like a year. It's been a long time, so my rating is not all that hot at this point, and I'm trying to work toward retirement so I can build it back up somewhat, I'm hoping. I usually do my streams, my live streams on Chessovd is this on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock my time in the United States. That's Mountain Time in the United States at 9 a.m. Several of the folks here in the chat has said it's easier for you folks because I've got a worldwide audience. So anything to make it easier for my audience is my pleasure to do. So, thank you, Avi Zakin. I appreciate your support and your enthusiasm. I will always try to teach you as good as I can. So, okay, you guys, I love you all, but go have a great day for the rest of the day. And if it's night where you're at, go have a good night rest. And I will see you in 1 week from today, 9 o'clock in the morning. Appreciate all of you. I'm going to go. I got to get out of town. I'll be back in a little while. Thank you, username. Appreciate you.